happy about that, according to a witness. And I don't think she would have abandoned her daughter.
Yeah, I mean, she called from the farmer's market.
Yeah, I mean, she, exactly. She obviously cared about her daughter. She obviously, if you read anything about her, had a lot of shortcomings. I mean,
Well, the thing about Ogle is there's that one report that says that, I think it was March of 1950 is when they say that she was quote-unquote spotted somewhere in Texas.
El Paso.
El
Paso. Okay. Well, the funny thing is, unless she did have the pregnancy terminated, she'd have been about 6 or 7 months pregnant at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So you would think that whoever had seen her and said, "Oh yeah, that's Jean," and wow, she's super pregnant. Instead, it was just, "Oh yeah, there's Jean. Yeah, she looked like she always did, slim dancer's body, beautiful as can be."
Unless she wasn't pregnant and that girlfriend was lying. I mean, it's totally possible.
That's a very valid point.
Or that she lied to the girlfriend.
She lied to the girlfriend, yeah. That's entirely possible. She was lying to Kirk, too. To blackmail him.
Maybe.
She just eating a lot of bonbons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could have been.
3 months. I mean, you can't really tell.
But that's why I know at 3 months, but at 6 and 7, you can't hide that.
Yeah, but I guess I just generally assumed she wasn't actually pregnant. But hey, that's me.
Yeah, it's highly possible she wasn't pregnant. Her mother, after her mother got back and everything, her mother also said that she would never abandon her family.
Yeah.
And so you got to believe her mother. Her mother obviously didn't know her that well because she was up to a lot of stuff that her mother wasn't in on. But
well, she's a 26-year-old.
Yeah.
Of course, you're gonna do things that you don't tell your parents about. I mean, that's just kind of the standard operating procedure.
I don't think that's just a 20s thing. I think your whole life you kind of just do things and generally your parents don't necessarily need to know about that.
Very true. There's a lot of things that I don't tell my family about.
Yeah.
I mean, there's shameful things that my whole family doesn't know about me, like, for example, this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't know about it. They never will. No, actually, they probably will someday when we become really famous.
We already are really famous.
Oh, that's right. Good point. Another problem I have with this theory that she ran off either by herself or with Davy Ogle is that she actually passed up a really good chance to make some money because her ex, Dexter, who apparently was a plastics manufacturer, had some money, wanted the daughter back. And so she knew she was going to blow town, and that means the daughter goes back to Dexter. Then why wouldn't she approach Dexter and say, "Hey, give me a couple of grand, and I'll give custody back to you"? And that's
well, there's a point there, but that also, again, that just circles me back to him. Mm-hmm. Because, of course, once she disappears, the court re-awards him custody of their daughter. Mm-hmm. And he goes right back to his same old behavior of the grandmother is trying to visit the daughter. Mm-hmm. And he keeps blocking it, not letting her see her. And I think that the grandmother tried to take some kind of legal action against him.
Yeah.
At which point he just said, "Oh, okay, great," and left the state.
Yeah. No, he was.
I'm gone. Good luck.
Yeah, he was sentenced to 5 days suspended in jail.
Yeah.
For not abiding by because apparently the court ordered him to allow the grandmother to see the daughter.
Right.
And then he continued to be obstructive, and so he was sentenced to 15 days in jail, not suspended. And that's when he took the wife and the daughter and left the state and moved to Florida, where he lived until he was 87 years old. And so there's just no good theories about this, but another theory that I have that's not really one that you see all over the internet is that she perhaps had a sideline. I mean, let's remember she was broke.
Super broke.
Perhaps, and I hate to say this, but perhaps she had a sideline as, say, an escort. Mm-hmm.
And she was a dancer. She was a very attractive woman by, I would say, modern and classic standards.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as if, she couldn't have done that.
Uh-huh.
Well, it would also explain why she was sighted with multiple different men at the same location.
Yeah.
At night. It would also
trying to find a John.
Yeah, and then it would also explain why you would lie, right?
You don't want to tell people, "Hey, I'm going to go out and do a little prostituting,"
Yeah, mom may just think that she goes and she does these night shoots, 2 or 3 days a week, and the studio's paying her pretty decently for being an extra in a night shoot. So what the heck?
I know.
And
Yeah.
then, conveniently, none of those movies ever actually get made.
Right.
Yeah.
Or, well, no, they cut my scene.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly.
Which actually happens to
All
people
the time.
all the time.
Yeah, I was in an extra movie years ago, and I finally, years later, got around to watching the movie to see if I could find myself in it. Because when I went to the set, it was a big crowd scene, so I wore a bright orange T-shirt. Even so, I could never find myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, they cut my scene, damn it.
They were like, we'd use this scene, except there was that idiot in the orange
Right,
shirt.
orange shirt.
Yeah,
We
more
can't
on
use
the
it.
orange shirt. Yeah, it was hilarious. It's a huge crowd scene, and it's like this one guy, this
What
couple, Roller Coaster with George Siegel and Timothy Bottom.
Don't look at me.
Long
No,
time
I have
ago.
no
Never heard of
idea.
it.
I've
Yeah,
never
that was
heard
never a
of it.
blockbuster, yeah. But there's this one couple. They were kind of what's the word I'm saying? Kind of trashy looking. They kind of looked not.
They were
not-
extras?
Yeah, they were among the extras. So we
Okay.
were all extras, and so there's the guys with the bullhorns directing us around, telling us where to go. And at the beginning of the first scene, she climbs up on his shoulders, and she's like all going like this and waving her arms in the air on his shoulders and everything. And then we're done. They say cut, and then the guy with the bullhorn goes out and says, "Hey, that's really awesome and really nice touch what you guys did. You're gonna have to do that in every take." Every
Way to
take
go.
today.
Good job, stupid.
Yeah, I know. That was a total diversion there. So if you engage back to the whole, she might have been an escort or a prostitute kind of thing. If you engage in that, well, you run a chance that you're going to meet Mr. Serial Killer.
Well, and not even Mr. Serial Killer. There's the crime of opportunity. Gentlemen who take upon those services aren't always in the clearest frame of mind, and I mean that from both they're intoxicated on something, whether it be booze or drugs, or they're not always 100% square in the head. I mean, there's just these things happen, and that's why that profession, and I'm using that term loosely, but that profession is notoriously dangerous.
Yep.
Yeah, it kind of is, yeah. So I think that it's entirely possible that this guy, say if she met up with the guy and the guy had wheels, to get to Griffith Park from there, if she was still hanging out on Sunset, where the cheese box was, to get to Griffith Park, it's a straight shot. You go east until you get to Western Avenue, and then you turn left, go north, it takes you straight there, and they're very easy. So he might have said, let's go to someplace a little more romantic than Sunset Strip. Let's go up to Griffith Park, and then what's up there? Well, once she realizes that things are kind of going south and that his intentions aren't so good after all, then she tries to get away from him. He grabs her purse. She rips it loose. He drops it, chases her down, and that's the end of the story. He doesn't bother going back for the purse.
The only thing is the note.
The note doesn't make any difference. This is a random dude.
Right, but I get the note still isn't explained.
It doesn't have to be, though. I mean,
It could just be a random something that
That's
she was
true.
writing to her friend
Yes,
that
that's true.
Yeah.
worked at the food cart
yeah.
at the
That's fair.
the place.
All right.
Yeah, I
The
don't.
movie lot. But the other thing is that I know that this is going to sound like I am just beating up on the Kirk Douglas theory again, but I really have a hard time letting go of that, only because of all of the stories of his bad behavior, and we'll leave out the whole story about a rape that he supposedly did, but he was notorious for being a player and knocking women around.
Yeah.
He was known for being that guy. So, and he went to houses of ill repute, supposedly, on a regular basis. So I could see him being one of those dudes who's like, hey, you're a cute extra. Why don't you come to my trailer? And then when suddenly there's, a product of that union, he's just like, well, I guess I could pay her off. You know what? No, I'm not going to pay her. I'm just going to take care of this, or I'm going to have somebody take care of it, which is then would give the guilty conscience why, 3 days later, he called the cops?
No, it's at 12th, so it would have been about
5 days.
6 days,
Suddenly
or about
he's-
4 days later.
Yeah, suddenly he's just, freaking out. Like, oh my God, I didn't think this would be this, in the news so big. I got to do something about it. I have a really hard time letting go of what I read about him. And their connection seems very slight, I admit, but it's really hard for me to let go just from the things that I've read about him.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, if you wanted to get ahead in Hollywood, if you were an aspiring actress in those days, the casting couch was pretty much a given for almost every actress in those days. And so it wasn't just the studio bigwigs that you had sex with. You probably, in order to get an in, have a connection, have sex with Kirk Douglas or some other famous actor.
He was the top dog on the pile.
Yeah, he was
at
a
that
superstar.
time.
Yeah.
He was the man.
Yeah,
So,
no, he was the Chuck Norris of the day.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Perfect.
Chuck Norris. Can we move away from that? I'm sorry I brought that up.
What's wrong with Chuck Norris?
Oh my gosh.
just keep going, please.
Yeah, okay. All right, now that we're done slandering Kirk Douglas, I guess we can wrap it up. Do you guys have any more thoughts? on this whole thing?
No. My slandering Kirk Douglas evidently was the only thing I had to say.
Yeah, and I just think it's a huge old mystery.
It's a big
It's
old mystery.
unsolvable, Joe.
Next big old mystery too. I mean, it may well be too that you never know who. I mean, because she was in 8 movies, uncredited, of course. But I mean,
She was in 8 whole movies. you
Yeah, I
guys.
know,
It's
but what I mean
really
is that
prolific.
She had a
extra.
total of 4.5 minutes of film
It's a
time.
lot.
if that much.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is in her she was attractive, and she probably attracted the attention of not just Kirk Douglas, but probably some other movie star types.
Yeah.
And I mean, she may have had some things going on with other Hollywood
Ne'er-do-wells?
actors, ne'er-do-wells. I mean,
Yeah,
so
who knows?
Yeah, so maybe it wasn't Kirk Douglas. It could have been a studio head. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think now that we've we haven't quite solved this one. We'll make this almost there, but not quite. Yeah.
I'm going to give this 3.5 stars on the solved rating.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
3.5 stars on a scale of 15. That's about right.
Yeah, it's about right.
Yeah. So, folks, that's it for this week. Of course, if you don't know where to find us, you can find us on iTunes. Please, of course, stop to give us a rating and maybe leave a little review, something like that. We really like those. You can find us on Facebook, and of course, if you find us on Facebook, you have to like us. Yeah. Well, you don't have to, but it'd be nice. And we have a group on Facebook too, don't we? Yes, we do. So yeah, join the group. You can also find us on Stitcher, although if you found us on Stitcher, you're probably not hearing this because Stitcher has developed this tendency to truncate our episodes. That's something we're working on, but yeah.
Someday they will figure out what's going on.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating. I'm sure it's even more frustrating for the people who are streaming our episodes. You can also send us an email at our email address, which is thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com.
Y'all have been great about that.
Yeah, we've been getting lots of emails lately, and don't.
So many suggestions.
Yeah, lots of great suggestions.
We try. We're kind of hitting this point, right, where we try to have a good mix of listener suggestions and things we've come up with. But at this point, you guys have either recommended everything that I ever knew about,
Yeah.
or there are so many piling up, and I feel bad about not doing them. That just get ready, because I think it's possible that for the next year, all of my episodes are going to be listener suggestions.
Yeah.
So sorry, everyone.
Well, yeah, no, and I've got a few ideas for how we might handle some of that we'll let everybody know once we suss it all out. So.
Secrets.
I'm always scheming and planning.
Of
Yeah,
course.
and I did not actually check the list of listener suggestions to see if somebody had suggested Gene Spangler. I know I found this one on my own, so.
No, but just this week we got an email that I happened to be on and respond to, and this person said, I'd love to hear you tackle this mystery, and I was like, wow, I was literally just thinking about doing that next week. Cool.
No, that's mine when I was researching Lori Erica Ruff.
Yeah.
Same
and then I
thing.
checked the email, and it's like, can't you do this one? And it's like,
Yep,
well, I guess you're in luck.
actually,
I guess
Yeah.
we'll get that right to you.
I guess too, yeah. Will you ask, we obey. And so also, if you want to find this episode somewhere and you don't want to go to iTunes or Stitcher, you can find it on our website.
Because you're not listening to it right now.
Yeah,
Just
exactly. Well, okay, so if you want to find future episodes, let me put it that way, thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. Yeah, you'll find links also, and also there's a survey. So if you want to take a moment to fill out the survey, that'd be really cool. It's not one of those long, tedious ones, right?
No, it's
It's
pretty
like
short.
It's like, like would you give your
It's-
firstborn
yeah, I
male
think it's
child
like
to
10
Thinking
questions or
Sideways
something. It's super
podcast?
simple.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Great.
yeah. Okay.
Easy.
All
I'll
right.
go take it right now.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I gotta take it like 50 or 60 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I always do with
Answer
those things.
differently every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, folks. Well, that's it until next week for Thinking Sideways, the podcast. This is Joe signing off.
We'll talk to you guys next week.
I apologize for my co-host.
Bye.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data to formulate a slide.
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways. I'm Joe, joined as always by
Steve?
and
Devin.
and in this episode we're going to do the usual thing and solve a mystery. And so if you're all ready, let's get this underway.
I love solving mysteries.
That's
Man,
right.
We're so good at it. Dude.
I know. I know. Yeah, almost an unblemished record. Okay, so we're going to be talking this episode about Jim Thompson. And if you've never heard of Jim Thompson, well, he was a dude. Yeah, he was an American. He born in 1906. He was a spy for a while in World War II. He worked for the OSS. He spoke.
Wait, what's the OSS?
OSS was the Office of Strategic Services, which was the predecessor to the CIA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they came into being in World War II and did some spying and stuff like that and covert ops. And so he was sent
spy
originally-
stuff.
Yeah, he was recruited into the OSS and went to North Africa first to work with the Free French in North Africa, and then he after North Africa he went to Europe for a while, and then he was sent to the Far East to go into Thailand and work with the Free Thai movement. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Anyway, let me get to the quick summary. Okay, so he after the war he became a businessman, and he started a very successful silk company in Bangkok, Thailand, in the late 1940s.
Don't they say that he's single-handedly responsible for the silk resurgence?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for saving the Thai silk industry. Yeah. But we'll get more into that later.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't care. So he disappeared without a trace in 1967. So that's the mystery, obviously.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. So at the time of his disappearance, he was one of the most famous Americans living in Asia because of his company and everything. And so it led to the most massive manhunt in Malaysian history, except I suppose MH370.
Sure.
Oh, that's more of a plane hunt.
Ye-
Yeah, but
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but okay. So, okay, back to his background. You know, he was recruited into the OSS, went to North Africa, Europe, and then after the surrender of Germany, went to Sri Lanka as a stepping stone to Thailand to help liberate Thailand from the Japanese occupation. He got to Thailand. Unfortunately for him, the Japanese had surrendered. Fortunately for the rest of us, but he didn't get to do any cloak and dagger work in Thailand. But he did go ahead and spend some time there. He set up the OSS office there, and then became military attaché for the U.S. Embassy there. And he was still doing some spying. He used his contacts with the Free Thai and the Free Lao movement or groups to gather information. So he was spying. And he also served as an intermediary between miscellaneous warring groups and tribes and tried to defuse conflicts.
Oh.
So he was generally a good guy, did good stuff. He went back to the U.S. but returned to Thailand, and then in 1948 he started the Thai Silk Company. And the Thai Silk Company was, as you said, he resuscitated the Thai silk industry. He had this great business model where women were weaving silk for him, and he let them work at home, so they could just, there was quality control and all that stuff. But he let them work at home, so they could still do their home stuff, but make money also.
Well, and
So
a lot
they-
of those women became the breadwinners.
So it was a good thing.
That's great, while letting them, stay at home with their young kids or whatever.
Exactly. He's also well known for his house, the Jim Thompson House, which is in Bangkok. and is now a museum because he built this place. He bought he bought like about half a dozen old houses
Yeah.
and dismantled them and brought them down the river to Bangkok, and then reassembled them, but in sometimes different odd ways. And so it's basically almost like a little compound rather than just a single house. And they filled.
Are they connected?
Yeah, they're interconnected, or at least some of them are. But I've never actually been there. I've seen pictures
Sure.
of it. I'd love to go see it. But he was a big antique collector, and he filled the place up with all kinds of exotic antiques. And so now it's a museum and a big tourist attraction in
I
Bangkok.
think that's the only reason that I would want to be rich. Is to be able to be an antiques collector.
That'd be one reason. I also want to be rich so I can have some Maseratis and
Right.
a big yacht.
Right. Well, okay.
Huge yacht.
That notwithstanding, it's
Yeah.
the whole antique thing that really gets me. It'd be antique Maseratis and antique yachts, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, it'd be.
Or at least antique inspired.
Yeah.
And the slick thing, the cool thing about the way he did those houses is that he studied to be an architect.
Yeah.
And he did some architectural stuff. He wasn't actually an architect. Evidently, he couldn't get through calculus, is what I read, so he couldn't actually become an architect.
Poor guy.
But he knew what he was doing, and what was really cool is some of these houses, he kept them at their same elevation above the ground of where they originally came from. So when you look at some of the pictures, there's a house that's, let's say, 15, 20 feet in the air.
Oh.
It was originally 15 or 20 feet above the ground, and he just elevated it, and that's how he put it all together. And he took some of the exterior walls and he flipped them because they disassembled the whole house.
Yeah.
So yeah, put that wall back in. But by the way,
Backwards.
give it a 180 degree spin. So the exterior is now on the inside, which it was just really interesting looking when I was looking through the photos that they have of it.
You know what? Have you ever noticed that it's only really interesting people who go missing?
I know. Well, there's thousands of people go missing every year.
Sure.
Nobody gives a damn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, unless it's somebody that's famous or interesting.
Sure,
Yeah, so
like this.
if we disappeared, there'd be a huge manhunt.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
Because we are both rich and interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Or a hit podcast. Billions of people listen to it.
Literally billions.
Yeah, they would trigger the largest manhunt in close-in East Side Portland history. Okay, well, back to our story. In March 1967, he traveled to Malaysia with a friend of his whose name was Constance Mangskow. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I think that's right.
So they went to what's called the Cameron Highlands. And the Cameron Highlands are that's what's kind of called a hill station or a collection of hill stations. The Brits, back in their colonial history, they colonized a lot of really hot, sweaty, tropical places, and so they always made a point of building hill stations. Like they have a bunch of hill stations in India. They're up in the mountains, so they're elevated. So during the hot season, they could go up there and be cool, and so it's a similar
Catch a
thing.
breeze.
Yeah,
see.
similar thing. They built hill stations up in the Cameron Highlands. So the town of Tanah Rata was one of those hill stations. And there they stayed with their friends, Dr. Ling Tiangi and his wife Helen Ling. He was Chinese. I believe she was an American. And
That sounds right.
yeah, so they spent several days hanging out. And on the third day of the visit, there was, again, staying in this house. He left the house, presumably to go for a walk. That's what he didn't actually say if he was going for a walk. But it was about 1:30 in the afternoon. He said to Helen Ling and to Connie Mangskow, he said, "Good night, sweethearts." And then he left and never came back.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Wait, at like 1:30 in the afternoon.
1:30 in the afternoon.
Not at night.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about the good night sweethearts thing is apparently they had a custom in their house, the Lings did, of saying good night sweetheart whenever they would take a nap or anything. If they were going to bed for the night or if they were just going to go take a nap, they would say good night sweetheart.
Yeah, regardless of the
Yeah.
time of day.
Yeah, so you'd think he would be going to take a nap, but apparently he
Is
left
that-
and went for a walk.
I guess like good night, is that like a Malaysian custom of any kind?
Not at all. It's totally. I remember reading something that it's got roots in something that's very British.
It's so weird. I mean, not to like harken back too much, right? But like when we were talking about MH370, right? Weren't the last words that were like transmitted good night? Weren't they?
somebody go listen to the episode.
Yeah,
again.
somebody, and then email us right
Yeah,
now.
please do that.
Yeah. Sorry. Again, not to go off topic,
I believe
but
there
that's
was
just
something
an
about.
odd little...
I believe there was something about good night. I think that was
night.
the last words they heard.
And it
Yeah.
was his last words too. The connections are being drawn.
Remind me, never say good night.
I'm sorry. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never hear from me again.
Now, you said it was about 1:30 in the afternoon is when that happened?
Yeah, 1:30. Dr. Ling was thinking it was 3:30 because he said he heard footsteps outside his door. At
Okay,
3:30.
yeah, that's why I was asking, because I remember reading there was a little bit of dispute on the time when he went for his walk.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't like an outside gazebo or hammock or like napping spot that he could have been going to, as far as you know.
Not that I know of, no.
Okay.
And I've only seen like one picture of the cottage that they were staying in,
Sure,
and that was
sure.
like from the front of it, and didn't have any backyard action in the picture. So
Because I guess that would make sense if if that was the tradition or the custom of the house was to say goodnight as you're going to nap or something, and it's, warm and the kind of spring, right? March is spring,
Yeah.
late
Yeah.
winter, early spring.
You know-
kind of, in Malaysia, you go hang out in a hammock and take a nap. That sounds kind of nice. But I
yeah.
guess if they probably would have mentioned that.
probably, yeah. Yeah, but as far as the time dispute goes, and this may be true. Maybe he was going out to the hammock to take a nap, and then suddenly there was a rustling in the underbrush, and suddenly a dog dressed as a giant spider came backing towards him. And he went running off and got lost in the jungle, and then was eaten by lions and tigers and bears.
Seems unlikely, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I think you're a little ahead of
For,
yourself
for
there.
a
I
man
know.
of his stature.
yeah. Okay, so what happened next? Anybody want to guess?
Nothing?
You never came back?
Good guess. That's true. Yeah, he
Never
didn't come
ever?
back. He never came back. So Dr. Ling called the police that evening, and they said they'd send somebody around the next day, and sure enough, they did send some people around the next day. They took a look at a picture of them, and then they recruited about 30 Aborigines and started searching the jungle in the area. Found nothing, and as word of his disappearance spread around the area, more than 100 people were looking for him by the end of the day. And the next day, they came back, and they continued sweeping the jungle, found nothing. I mean, not a trace, not a little torn piece of clothing or footprint or anything. After that, the Thai Silk Company put up a $10,000 reward for anybody who found him.
In the 60s?
And that, yeah, so I mean, especially
Wow.
in the '60s in America, $10,000 was real money. You could buy a house.
Yeah.
And imagine what that would be in Thailand or in Malaysia.
yeah, that's a lot of
live
money.
for the rest of your life money.
Oh yeah, in that country, hell yeah.
Yeah, it is today almost. So, yeah, that's wow.
Yeah, a lot of money. His friend Connie Mangskow also put some money up. The police put up some reward money, and so that obviously motivated lots of people to go out looking for him. But still, he wasn't turning up, and rumors began to start around that he'd been kidnapped and taken out of the country.
Well,
And I don't know what the basis of those was.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think I do know what the basis of those are, but I think that we're going to get into some of that in the theory section. So
Yeah,
I wanna,
exactly. Yeah, and the rumors might have started because I don't know how well known his association with the OSS/CIA was.
well, it wouldn't
So-
have had to be so well known. I mean, just a couple little murmurs, right? That's all
yeah.
it takes.
Yeah,
Well, we've all seen Burn Notice. It just takes one guy knowing.
I know.
Because everything I know about spies, I learned from Burn Notice.
I know.
I'm confused as to where his plucky semi-alcoholic sidekick is at to
Yeah.
help him out in all
Yeah,
of
I know.
this,
Where's
based
Bruce
on what
Campbell?
I've
I
seen.
know.
But no, I mean, it really is. It's just one person that you've dealt with before that happens to know you. And I know the theory of he being, absconded and taken out of the country is all that there's talk about communist rebels or something like that in the area, which I always found weird because if you look at Malaysia on the map, they're kind of a ways away from what you would consider the big communist stomping grounds.
Like Cambodia and
Yeah, I mean
Vietnam and all that.
it's a good little distance, and it would be a lot of effort to try to to get somebody out of that area.
Yeah, it probably would be. So, and they may well have been hanging around in the area. I don't know. I don't know what kind of communist insurgencies were going on in Malaysia at the time. Mm-hmm. There may have been. But, we'll get back to that in a little bit. And speaking of burn notices, I don't know if you knew this, but he actually had a burn notice put out on him. Jim Thompson did.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, because he was.
You might want to tell people what a burn notice is, by the way.
Yeah, would
burn
you?
Burn notice is when, like, say, a company like the CIA basically puts out a notice to everybody that none of them are to have anything to do with this guy anymore. Don't talk to him.
It's basically they blacklist him, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
You're done. You're burned.
Yep.
You've got no contacts.
Mm-hmm.
Any contact that knows you will say they don't know you. They won't interact with you.
Yeah. So, yeah, he had a burn notice put on him.
After his disappearance, or
No, before. I think it was about 1962, right around there, early 60s. Yeah, he was actually opposed to U.S. policy in Southeast Asia. He felt that really we should be working with guys like Ho Chi Minh and stuff like that. He felt like we should be not starting wars, and he also felt that the CIA was getting too militarized. He felt like they were just too much like an army and not enough just being a spy and intelligence gathering agency.
Sounds like a man before his time.
Yeah, he was openly critical of U.S. policy, and that's probably the reason he got burned. And so, yeah.
I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I made that joke not knowing that.
Yeah, no, it's true. Well, I shouldn't say it's true. It's something I read in the internet, so who knows?
So it's 100% true.
Obviously, it's got to be true.
It's not on his wiki page, so we don't know that it's true.
So, yeah.
Well, let's get back to the manhunt for a second here.
Yeah.
So, of course, there were the rumors. Okay, enough of that. And on April 1st, another search was begun. Edwin Black was a general in the U.S. Army, and he had known Thompson since World War II. He came there with a couple of guys, one of whom was like a scout, and I forget what the other guy was. He was just a civilian. And these were guys who knew the jungle, knew that area well,
right.
And they knew all about the jungle. So they head out to search, and they got together with 200 men from the police force, and they combed the area again, went even further out into the jungle for about 2 days, and found absolutely no trace. Eventually, after 11 days of searching, it started winding down. On April 23rd, a Brit named Richard Noon arrived. This is another guy who knew the jungle well, and he went out with a couple of guys and searched. And he searched beyond where the other searchers had reportedly gone. And they saw some Aborigines who had not seen a trace of Thompson. And eventually they gave up the search and came back. And he talked to reporters, and he said that he was sure Thompson was not in the jungle.
Now, I read this in a lot of the documentation, and I know you've said it a couple of times. And I just want to clarify to make sure I understand this. When you say Aboriginal, that's local, basically. Is that correct? That's in the jungle, and they do what they do is kind of a subsistence-based existence. Is that right?
Yeah, like the original tribesmen.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you look at a place like Malaysia, besides Brits and Americans coming and living there, there's Chinese and Japanese and all kinds of other people who've also kind of come in. But these are the original local inhabitants of the area.
And I just wanted to clarify that, because I know initially when I read that term, whenever I hear, and this is just because of the popular things that we hear, is I hear Aborigine and I think...
You think Australia.
I think Australians.
Yeah, exactly,
I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, I don't know. I mean, these may have been Australian Aborigines who call it. I don't know.
We don't know. Our
I think
database
your
doesn't go back
first description was accurate, not the second.
Probably.
It's, what everybody else calls what we call Native Americans.
Yes, the
It's
native.
the better term.
Those are also Aborigines.
Yeah. Better term.
Yeah. Next in our drama, a psychic named Peter Hurkos arrived.
Oh.
Yeah, he was an American, and he apparently nobody invited him. He just sort of showed up.
Well, 'cause
as
he
they
knew.
tend to do.
No, he just knew something was wrong.
Yeah, so this
he
guy...
intuited
Oh, he's a
it.
psychic, yeah.
Yeah.
He might have read something in the newspaper, too.
Well, if he was so psychic, why didn't he show up before he disappeared?
Well, in his favor, I got to say, it's just because you're psychic doesn't mean you can see the future. So, So anyway, our psychic went to the cottage where Thompson had been staying and put on a little dramatic dog and pony show.
Can you describe it for me?
Can I describe it?
Yeah.
Well, he kind of went into a trance and then did a lot of stream of consciousness. I don't want to actually quote his entire thing because it really goes on for quite a while.
Right. And it's a little racist. I found it racist reading it.
You found it. Well, then it was.
Do you want to read it?
No, I don't.
Okay,
but he spits out. I mean, the whole thing is long, but he spits out these garbly-gook words which when I read them phonetically, I could see how they sounded like something from an Asian language.
Oh.
Like he didn't know what he was doing. He was just trying to spit out words that maybe sounded like something in a local dialect, hoping he would land upon something. So that's why I said it sounded a little
I see.
racist.
Okay, that's fair.
Well, yeah. So he finally, when this was all done, and he comes out of his trance, he said that Thompson had been kidnapped and taken to another country, just like the rumors. And he also said that Thompson was not being held for ransom. So that means apparently, I guess he was being taken to be interrogated, or
He's some kind of political prisoner.
yeah, or maybe I mean, if it was suspected that he still had contacts in the CIA, which of course he probably didn't. Not everybody maybe knew that. Maybe somebody thought that they could interrogate him and torture him enough to get some useful information out of him.
Or maybe
Not
they were
really
just
sure.
holding him for later.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
Bargaining chip, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've learned a lot about what some people will do. I mean, it's not always like, yeah, hey, by the way, we have this person and we're going to release them if you give us $1 million. Sometimes it's, well,